Welcome back, everybody. As you can see, I'm on the right hand side of this tractor, my 26 spoker, and I'm going to try to get the clutch pulley and first reduction all completed today on this episode. So we got the cover all lathered up with a sealer and the gasket stuck on it, and so I'm ready to set that on, and we'll see if we can get this accomplished today. Well, I'm getting set up to sweat the gear onto the clutch pulley, and it's a pretty cold morning this morning. It's down to 0 out there, and I left the clutch pulley outside overnight, so it should be good and cold. And the gear I will heat up with the torch, and we'll see if we can slip that on there. Might need a little bit of persuasion, I doubt it, but a little something. Got the keyway ready to go, and it's even got a little snow in there. This was a gear that's new, but it didn't have a keyway in it, and I suppose that's the reason it was never used. But I found a guy up in Wisconsin that has a big machine that can cut that keyway. And so I sent it to him, and he got the keyway cut. You definitely don't want to get it red hot. Try that. There we go. Easy. Clear down, the keyway's in it. Just let it cool off. It'll be ready to go. Now, go back to assemble the rest of the clutch. This is a new old stock gasket. I softened it up a little bit, soaked it in some water for a little bit, and then I put the sealer on, and I think it's pretty well back to shape now. It's a little tricky getting everything in there and keeping the gasket lined up. Probably in there as good as I can get it. Now I want to try to lift it up just a little bit. Because I want to get this centered on the crankshaft, as I might have to come back and remember to put the bracket on here for the clutch rod, the dust shield on for the clutch pulley. Let's see, I think that goes on. There is a little bit of play in this that you can work with. Try to center it in there. Kind of leave them a little loose, just snug a little. And I'll slip that clutch pulley on and see if it turns in it. That. need to go back with the whole thing. What can I do to push it back? It wants to get just a little bit. Now tighten up the cover. Mar that up just a bit. But it seems like it's freewheeling now without hitting that. Okay, now I'll take the pulley back off and tighten up everything. Got everything tightened up. Now I gotta run and go get some oil. I'm gonna run some oil, fill up the bottom of that reduction cover a little bit with motor oil, so it has some lubricant in there on those gears. So I'll be right back. So before I put the oil in, I wanted to get this so I'd make sure it would go on, but it's a new old stock driver, and the keyways on the spline on the crank is really good too, so it's going to be like a new fit on here once I get it on there. I got to get all the rest out of it. Usually these fall off in your hands. Okay, that's going to be pretty tight on there, so I'll start adding the oil. So I got the John Deere funnel, and you got to get it in the back part of the reduction gear past the baffle, otherwise it'll just run back into the engine. And this is mostly motor oil that's in this case. But it's one place that never drains out, so it can get pretty crappy down in there. I'll put a little oil on the crankshaft for that inside bushing on the belt pulley to run. Next is to put the belt pulley on. I greased that roller bearing in there a little bit, but it's supposed to oil from the motor. Yeah, you can, it picks up that oil, and so I got oil on all the gears now. Now I will put the facing in. And then the clutch driver. And you want to make sure this is all smoothed up around here, because that's what runs on the seal in the belt pulley. And make sure your surfaces are getting clean. And then you want to make sure you get the dowel pin in the slide in the clutch driver, so it's all balanced. This is balanced with the crankshaft. I'll snug this up, not overly tight. Then I'll tighten down That's normal. Now we'll tighten up the clutch driver. So I've got a new clutch driver in here and new facings and a new brass fork. So it should run pretty good. Hopefully my dogs on the clutch pulley are good enough that it snaps in and out good. Kicks that idler gear. Okay. Now let's put a few more cranks on these bolts. I've got this all cleaned up. Got it cleaned up too much, the springs won't stay on there. We'll see how this goes. It might be difficult to get those springs in there. I don't think I got them in there. I'll have to figure out something to hold those springs on. But anyway, we'll finish that up and okay. That's pretty well assembled now. I just have to get the clutch fork in. So we'll go over to the bench and work on it. So I found a pretty good brake and I had a new pad to put on it. So I riveted that on there. And then like I said, I put a new brass fork on there. The other ones I had just weren't all that great. Made a new keyway. This is a used piece here. So I assembled all that, and I got a pretty good bearing there. And so to assemble that, put the brake in. I greased it a little bit to give it a little bit of lubrication. And then you got to feed the key in there. There's a notch. If you got the correct piece here that has the notch for the keyway for a 26, then you're in business. Because these weren't splined, these were all keyed together. And then get that in there. Maybe, well, that'll probably get away. And then slide that all together. Get the brake around there correctly. So another one of those things where you gotta hold your mouth just right to get everything lined up correctly. Okay, there we go. Now, when you insert it into the gear, you want to have the lip of the fork towards the gear, because that kind of runs over towards the gear. If you put it in the other way, it won't work. There won't be any clearance. Okay, then you got to get that key in there. And make sure your counter key isn't interfering in there. Okay. Now just have to put some sealer on it. Here's the bolts to put it in. So I'll get the camera back over there by the tractor. Okay, I've got the assembly all here ready to put in. And you want to make sure you get that into that groove of the clutch sleeve, which is right here. Make sure it's pushed all the way in towards the gear. Cut my gasket. Okay, try this again. Keep my gaskets away from the pulley. I put some sealer on those because they do go into oil. Those bolts that bolt that bearing, that clutch bearing to the cover are kind of unique. They're the longest bolt on the tractor that are 5 or 3/8, except they're the same bolt that bolt the steering sector in the axle. So there's only 7 of them on a tractor, but it seems like they're the ones that are always not there. They're hard to come by. Whether they get twisted off or, I don't know, get broke. I don't know why they're always a little scarce to come up with. Nice correct restoration. Those bolts are hard to come up with to make it correct. Those tall-headed 3/8 bolts. Okay, now we'll see if we can get the pin in, and we'll try to adjust the clutch. Let's see if it'll work. So if you engage the clutch and then tighten up your adjusting nuts out here until they're snug. You might have to wiggle them back and forth a little bit to seat those T-bolts in the dogs on the inside. So if they don't seem to want to tighten up evenly with the same amount of bolt on the outside, that could be the problem. Back them off a little bit and get a pliers and twist them a little bit. See if you can get them to seat. And let's just see if they're seated without the pliers. Turn back a little bit. Close. I think it's going to work. I think my springs are all in there on the pressure plate. One more notch. Pretty good. I think it's going to work fine. This one seemed like it wants to go just a little bit more. We'll probably run it a little bit. Run it a little bit and then readjust it. But it runs free, doesn't drag on the dust shield behind it. adjust the brake up a little bit. No matter what, these brakes have a pretty good amount of slop to them. And they're even that way when they're new. Turn it in just a bit more. That looks pretty good. Okay, I think that's pretty well finishes that up. I got to put the Welch plug back underneath the bottom here so it doesn't drip out immensely, but that's it for the clutch. And now on to the governor. So on our next episode, we'll tackle the governor. We'll see you down the road.